All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Ken McBee coming to you from sunny Phoenix, Arizona. It's a balmy 81 degrees here today. Right. So I've got a cast of characters. This is a live that I feel like a lot of you have wanted or been waiting for. I would say drop your questions in the chat for our planners or our planning director of ops. Or we've also invited Brett Stewart back so we could answer any questions that had to do with the load board because it went live today. So lots of great stuff, right?
Yeah.
Let's start out before we do introductions. I want to say thank you to all of our drivers. We appreciate all the great feedback that you gave us. 3,400 responses. So that really gives us a good sample size to figure out where there's any gaps in processes, things that we need to improve. So know that we will be working on those things from really April until September when we do it again. So thank you for all your feedback on the survey. The other thing you could drop in the chat is any kind of lives that you want to see in the future. So we've brought these folks to you because you said, hey, I want to talk to planners, or hey, I want to talk to the owner operator department, and that's where all of these come from. So drop in the chat who you'd like to see on the next live, and we will organize that for the near future. So let's start with introductions. Brett.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Brett Stewart, Vice President of the Owner Operator Division, and happy to be here.
Awesome. To our Director of Ops, Mark, you want to go first?
Yep, Mark Polgar. I'm the Director of Ops in the North Central. So I have the planning centers in Manteno, in Edwardsville, and Denver as well.
Awesome. Kevin?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Kevin Vadnal. I'm the Director of Ops here out west. I've got the entire west, so the Northwest, Troutdale, and all the way into the Lewiston markets, and then down into all of the California markets, Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, and Arizona, El Paso, and New Mexico.
So just a small area is what you're saying, Kevin.
No sleep there.
No sleep there. Kevin's working all the time. All right, how about Jesse?
Hey, good afternoon. Jesse Whitmore. I'm the Director of Ops for the South Central region. I have oversight on the Lancaster, Memphis, and West Valley City, Utah planning centers.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, our Director of Ops is who all of our planners report to. Brett's obviously over all of the owner operators. So we feel between all of us, we probably have the experience to answer most questions you throw at us today. And if not, we'll tell you, we'll have to figure it out, find out, and respond to you hereafter. But let's just jump right into it. One of the most important things that anybody can do in this industry is communication. So could one of the directors go ahead and let's talk phones. We've made some changes lately. So tell us what your expectations are on phones.
Hey, yeah, I'll take that one, Ken. Hey, we've heard from you guys on getting through on the phones. We know how important it is when you need to get a hold of somebody. You want to get a hold of somebody. Now we've got your driver leaders here that we really enjoy you to be able to utilize and go through when you can. Doesn't mean you can't call a planner when it makes sense. If you need to reach out to a planner, feel free to call a planner. But we've created a call tree so that you can make sure to get a hold of somebody. We still have a lot of drivers that are reaching out to direct phone numbers, which limits you. They could be on the phone with somebody else. They could be on a conference call. They could be on the call with the customer. So if you call this call-in tree, which is the number's up on the screen here, but it's 602-735-9007, then you can select which planning center. It'll start you out with whether you want east, west, or north central, northeast, southeast, whichever region you're in. And then you can select the actual terminal that the planning center area that you're in. And then it's going to go to the next available planner. So it's not going to park you sitting on hold waiting for somebody that's on the phone that may be tied up for a while or maybe at lunch. So when you do need to get a hold of a planner, that's really the preferred way. You can always send the macros to them as well. They're watching that. And again, if you can, your driver leader really needs to know what's going on with you. So they want to be in the loop. So use your driver leader when you can.
Well, and that brings it back to even when you're calling your driver leader, we have all the phones set up to route whether even nights and weekends, or once they call to you, it either maybe goes to the group, or if it's after hours, it goes to after hours. So if you're calling numbers that aren't the direct numbers to those folks, the phones may not route right. So a good example, Kevin, would be, hey, if I call one of your planners and there's multiple people that call that planner's phone number and they don't go through this system, that's where more than likely they could sit on hold for 30 minutes or something like that, right? Depending on the time of day.
Absolutely.
So the key to success here is that we call those direct numbers. So, all right. Let's, macro 10 is another important part, right, of our day, and that's a way to communicate back and forth to the drivers. Can one of you talk about macro 10 and what the purpose is?
Well, yeah, macro 10 is just simple. Could be as simple as, hey, I need a trailer, I need a plan, and so forth. So it's really just a sort of a catch-all for a driver to send us a message so we know what you're looking for. So whether it be I need a trailer or a load in the area I'm going into, it's any of those functions, I think. So.
Hey, we measure our planners on keeping up with the macro 10s and making sure that those are being responded to. So that is a priority and is important to us.
I think you bring up something really important there, Kevin, that I think all of our drivers and everybody should know is you talked to just about measuring our planners on certain metrics. So could you talk through, especially with this change in the phone system, we're really measuring our planners on how they're doing, right?
We do. The phone system is what is on what's called pure cloud, and we've got are able to get into significant metrics within inside of it. It tells us average everything from how many calls to how long it took to answer the calls, to times of calls and how long they were on the calls, which it's just an opportunity for us to be able to make sure that we're getting done what needs to get done and make it changes and adjustments where needed. If we've got we need more staffing at certain hours of the day, then we can make those adjustments. We can make changes. Same thing with the Mac 10s. Those are just reports for us to be able to see where we need to shift resources to make sure that we're being able to take care of those things.
Awesome. And then macro 10s, again, we measure those just like you said every day. So great metrics and KPIs that we have for our planners. Just know that we watch those daily and want to make sure that the most important thing is taking care of you. So Jesse, can you walk us through? I think we've seen a lot of glimmers of really positive freight volumes in your area, especially, but in a lot of the areas. So can you kind of walk through what that looks like? What you've seen over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so it's been very, very encouraging. We're seeing a huge shift in the market, especially here in the Texas markets. Lots of big wins. Most notably is going to be a big tractor supply DC here out of Waco, Texas. That's going to be a huge amount of volume that's going to start up here at the end of May. We've also just recently won a very large Home Depot outbound Dallas and Houston award. So we feel really confident at this point that we're really starting to see the shift in freight, at least here in Texas, has really started to turn the other direction. So very, very exciting. So we've been overbooked here in the Texas market for a couple weeks now, and that continues into next week. So we're very optimistic.
And then Mark and Kevin, you want to talk about either one of your markets? I mean, we have challenges, but we're seeing a lot of the positive things happen, right?
Yeah, Mark, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, sure, absolutely. Yeah, so, in the areas that I have, the biggest challenge we have right now is the Chicago market. And what we've really found is that a few months ago, we were completely overbooked in Chicago. So we said, hey, sales, hey, customer accounts, we really need inbound for Chicago. Well, the outbound hasn't slowed down dramatically at all, but the inbound's really picked up. So it gives us an opportunity to go to the customers in the area to solicit more freight coming out, and it's there. We just have to get it. So we kind of oversatisfied the need for inbound freight in Chicago. Now there are some accounts that are going to start up again. Mopar, I'm sure a lot of the drivers have moved a lot of that freight. It's very driver friendly. It's all drop and hook and so forth. Mopar is closing their Milwaukee facility, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they're moving all that down into Belvidere, Illinois, which is southwest of Chicago. That should be starting up fairly quickly here. We're thinking a week, maybe 2 weeks. So that'll give us a shot in the arm there. But we're actively soliciting freight on the Chicago market. The rest of the market there, the middle of the country, the Kansas and the Missouri and so forth. We're working with the general managers and sales and so forth, soliciting more freight for those areas to get it balanced out. It's fairly balanced now, but hey, it could always be better, and we're always looking for opportunities. Denver, which is, man, it's hot and cold. I guess it depends on how Miller Coors is doing out there. Last couple weeks, it's been up and it's been down. So really, the goal is out there to diversify. So we've got some different accounts that we're looking at in the Denver market that we think we can bring those on board and get a pretty good balance there. So those are the things we're working on right now.
A lot of positive vibes, especially as you get into summer. More people probably are drinking beer and having those picnics and parties and other things too. So hopefully we should see an influx from Miller Coors.
Yeah,
Kevin.
Yeah. You got beverage season coming around the corner, so that we see a lot of accounts start to pick up right now, including your Quakers, your Pepsis. A lot of your beverage companies are going to start really picking up about this time of the year. So we're seeing some of that. But yeah, out west here, we've seen some hot and some cold times. We saw the Northwest come alive for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of slowed down up there a little bit. We're closer to about even right now. I feel pretty good about the Northwest. The Southwest, we stay very, very strong out of Southern Cal, which is a really big sign. Usually how California goes, the network goes, right? It really drives our network. And so we saw some really strong weeks in Southern Cal. It's lightened up a little bit, not too terribly bad. It's not a bad place to go. I wouldn't turn down freight going in, I wouldn't turn down a load going into Southern Cal. We're doing a pretty good job of getting everybody out each day. Phoenix, we walked in Monday to just an incredibly hot market. It's flipped. We struggled a lot the past couple of months out of the Phoenix market. It's turned. Same thing here. We've got the big Tractor Supply account here, along with Costco and several others that have been here forever. Got some other new business that's coming along. And then you move up into Vegas, which is completely transitioned. Vegas is a different market than it's been for the past 30 years, 40 years at Swift. We've really, really grown with the new account, Crown Cork and Seal in Mesquite, Nevada, whereas we were doing nothing before. They just built the plant, and now we're doing over 100 loads a week out of there, primarily into Southern Cal and into Northern Cal. So great business to keep our guys loaded. But I feel really, really good about the West. We're not out of anything yet, guys. And the key right now is service, because every carrier out there wants the freight. Swift is doing very, very well, is doing better, I think, than most of the average, because we're doing a good job on service. So we've got to maintain that. I can tell you there's a lot of business that we've won. Jesse, for example, his Tractor Supply, he won it because of service. We're still in with a lot of customers because of our service, and we're winning business because of service. So we really got to keep that up.
Well, and I see a ton of comments coming on. I want to touch one more thing, and I'm not forgetting you over here, Brett, because lots of owner comments coming in.
Good information.
Hey, these are all very important, and as you talk, service is one of the most important things. Let's just talk through best practices real quick. What is there's usually one thing that all of you guys want the most from a driver. What's the one of the most important things that they set and do?
Well, we'll give you, there's three of us. We'll each take a letter. I'll say P.
T.
Yeah, T. And A. Yeah.
A.
Yeah, PTAs, right?
Critical for us.
And to service our customers, it's not just setting a PTA, but it's making sure you show up on time, right? Even though we're planning in the background. So if you set it for 8 a.m., be here at 8 a.m. ready to go. Right? That's a big one. Confirming your logs, or why don't you guys hit a couple more things that are very important, or like what you would like to expect from our drivers right now in the market we're in?
So yep, confirmed logs, I'd say, is huge, and then a good quality pre-tripped trailer. We've seen a lot of drivers, company and owners, that get tripped up sometimes with some customers require what they call a food grade trailer. So to make sure that the trailer is nice and clean, swept out, ready to rock and roll, will save a lot of headaches out there. And I know there's a lot of trailer issues out there, and I don't mean to harp on just one or open up a can of worms there, but that's the best thing you can do for yourself is have a good quality trailer ready to go.
Well, and that gives us a plug for the Freight Box app, right? They could scan that trailer and even attach it to them if they see it in the yard. So if you don't know how to do that, you can go on Swift University to see how that Freight Box app works. But we're having hundreds, well, actually thousands of people attaching and detaching trailers. So please check that out if you don't know about it. That's all the QR codes on the front of the trailers. Mark, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, I just, with Jesse's comment about the pre-trip on a trailer, just understand that's part of service. And, when we have a driver that shows up at a shipper's location with a trailer that they're not going to accept, it really delays a driver, which, impacts their pay and so forth. So really service and making sure the equipment that we're using is in order and on time. It's going to save drivers a ton of time, and they'll set themselves up for far more success that way. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, and some of these markets have changed. We're in the bid season. One of the big things would be kind of take all loads, right? I mean, maybe broaden your horizons. You don't just run where you used to anymore.
Yeah.
Can one of you talk through that?
Yeah, like I said, we're not out of the dark yet. It's still early in the year. We're coming off some really rough times in the world. We know that, and so we're not able to be as selective. For us to fill the freight basket to keep everybody moving, we've had to broaden Swift's lanes that we normally would run. There's lanes that normally weren't a good fit for us, and we're having to broaden ourselves. So we have to ask our drivers to do the same. We can't be as selective as we could through COVID when there was just a ton of freight, where we had customers banging down our doors begging us to take freight. We could be more selective. We don't have that capability at this time right now. We hope to get back there sometime. But again, we've got to service what we're booking, and it's not always exactly what we may want or what our drivers may want. So we'll do our very, very best to keep you in the lanes that you like to run, and we'll get you home on time. But when you're out there just running general freight, I mean, we've got to go where the freight goes, and that's a good call, Ken. Thank you.
Well, and you just touched on one more thing, home time. That's maybe a little bit different now than it was back when it was just falling out, of the freight coffers, right? So how would we address home time a little better? What's maybe some best practices or secrets to success to make sure we're getting home for the most important stop?
Yeah, the sooner the better. I mean, the sooner we know, get your home time requests in, because as Ken just alluded to, as we've talked, that we don't have as many loads to choose from to get you home. It's important, and we're going to figure it out. But it's more of a challenge for our planning team today than it was before when the basket's overflowing. So sooner the better.
Well, and with our new home time system, they can put in multiple home times now, right? So don't think you can just put in for Memorial Day. You can put in for Memorial Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and you can have multiple home times out there sitting so we can see it and maybe plan a little ahead when we run some numbers in the background on how many might take Memorial Day off.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, we've got great systems that helps us with that. We just got to have good data in and good data out.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid to ask a planner or a driver leader. If you live in Arizona and you're in Texas, for example, and you get offered a load to Virginia, but you're due home, in a week, ask that question. Hey, how's the freight market look in Virginia? Am I going to be able to get home in time if I go east? And we may need to make some changes to make sure we can accommodate that.
So what I'm hearing from you, Jesse, it's a team effort, right? It's not just us getting you there. It's you being a part of that solution to make sure you don't get too far away for whatever your hours are, or, all the different things that come into play there.
Yeah, sure. A planner, when he's looking at a driver right now and he's trying to cover a load and he sees a guy that might need to be home in 9 days, it may not, the system may even tell him to send that guy to Kansas City. But we might want to stop and think about that, as Jesse mentioned, and say, hey, maybe pick it up and swap it out in Oklahoma City or something and do something different to ensure that we don't get you too far away.
I like it. All right. I've kind of drilled these guys for a while. Brett?
Yeah.
Load board's live.
Load board
Only
is
took us a few years.
Yeah.
right?
About 4 in total. And we had our morning hiccup. It didn't go at launch as smooth as we wanted to. There was a small issue, got it corrected real quick. And then people were able to access and log into the load board. But very excited for what the platform will allow, some of that autonomy that the owners have been asking for. So yeah, it is there and it's available for our over-the-road owner operators that run in our 005 general freight for dry van.
So, about how many people are in that right now?
A little bit over 400.
A little over 400.
Yeah.
So gives you an idea of how many can use it, right?
Yeah.
We go out about how far out can they go?
Yeah, so right now the load board is looking at freight outside of in between now and 18 hours out, and it's showing all of the available loads within that time.
Okay. So an owner isn't necessarily going in and taking maybe what would be a company driver's load. It's 2 days from now, right? I just got a load. I'm going to grab a load 2 days from now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to expand as freight starts to get more robust, obviously more coming in, that window will expand. But the window is set there for a few reasons, mainly service, as the directors have alluded to. We don't want to get too far out to where we start to fail loads. Naturally, too, we want to make sure that the platform is even in a sense of just having loads available for everyone. There are over 10,000 drivers that run for Swift, and everybody needs an opportunity.
Definitely. Now, I'm going to grab some questions just so we keep some of these going. Tyrone is asking, are you all planning company drivers before lease drivers? This is a great question for whoever wants to answer it. Probably the directors first.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
We really don't have any reason to. We could take any example in any market at any given time of the day. There's so many variables that play into that, not just when you get unloaded. We can't just go by, when you got empty, because you may have needs needing to go one direction. You may be 100 miles from the next load when there's a driver that just unloaded 10 minutes after you who's 3 miles from that location. So there's just so many variables, but there really is no advantage to our planners to plan one driver in front of the other. We're making the best decisions for all involved.
And I would just add that, hey, just like with anything else, with our owners, when our owners are successful, the company is successful.
Right.
And we all want the same thing, which is for our organization to be successful. We want all of our employees to succeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just want to, there's Tim's out there throwing a little shade at you guys. Said the best planners are in the Northeast, hands down. There might be some arguments from some other folks, right? Here's a great question. Are the planners going to equally share the loads on the new owner operator load board? Because as of now, it's limited load. So really, I think there's a couple questions in there, but it's going to expand, right? So maybe Brett, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, and that was something we tried to forewarn the owners around as well. When the load board goes live, it's showing the loads that are available, not planned or committed, that have a delivery scheduled and a pickup schedule, right? So as we've talked about, the planners are doing their part. They're planning all the available loads as quickly as they come in. So there isn't a lot that's just hanging out there and available. Now, as we get more freight in, and there's more loads that we have trucks for, there's going to be a lot more freight on the load board.
A lot more choices.
Yeah, a lot more choices. But really what that tells me is that the team here with the directors and the planners are doing their part. When a load becomes available, they're looking at the truck that's next in line, offering it to that, and then going down the line or whatever works best for that.
Or it could be who has the most hours, committed to their hours, do all the things that they were supposed to, right? This is all about the right data in, right data out.
Totally, yeah. And I go back to PTA as well. I had an owner call me this morning and just say, I just saw someone leave before me and I've been sitting beside him the whole time. This isn't fair. And I said, your PTA is for tomorrow at 4 p.m. Like, really? Well, yeah. So your PTA is for tomorrow at 4 p.m. You're not even on the horizon. No one can see you because your PTA is pushed out. It goes back to that projected time of availability, PTA. So check with your driver leader in the morning, check with your team to say, hey, what is my PTA set for? If you originally set it out for a farther date, but then decided you could be available sooner, you got to call in and make sure that the system is showing that accurately. So I think a lot of people think of like getting skipped over as that is purposefully or malicious by any means. And it most of the time just means that your truck isn't showing as available.
So we have a little bit under 100 planners planning each day with 100 or thousands of loads, right? So there is no ill will here. Trust me, we all want to make sure the number one thing is service, getting our loads covered for our customers, because that brings in a lot more, just like the directors were talking about just previously. So yeah, I think you bring up a good point. There's no ill will here.
No.
Sometimes it's kind of garbage in, garbage out on some of the data that we have, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, why can't planners stack more? And then they go on to say, as an owner operator, I need to know what my next load is. But I think that's every driver. That could be a company or an owner. So, guys, what do you think? Can you explain to Josh why we're not stacking more right now?
Well, we would love to. Unfortunately, the market, just doesn't warrant it as much right now. We're a lot of markets we're booking day of. It's a tough market out there still, and a lot of our customers, as the world has changed, look at your Amazons and such. They're literally calling us and booking today for loads to pick up today in a couple hours. So we don't have the freight always the best options. Especially, we've got some freight that books out days in advance, but it may not be the right load that we want to that might align with that driver to stack them on. So if we stacked you out on something and then come tomorrow there's a better load going right where you need to get to or something like that, you'd miss out. So there's a thin line there on when we can and when we can't. We do when we possibly can. It makes sense.
And sometimes you're holding off, right, Kevin, because you have somebody that may have all of their hours versus somebody that has 4 hours, and
Sure.
You're waiting for those same day bookings to happen, and you want to make sure you get them the most miles, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that play into planning's a difficult role. So, Brett, how do we access the load board?
Well, what I'd ask you to do is just log into your owner operator portal. There's a post there that will have one of the first questions that's answered is what is the login, and then what is my password. So that I'd ask you to log into the owner operator portal and look through that.
All right.
And that's mainly because the website, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's a website and a link that you can actually click onto and it'll drive you straight to it.
And it's definitely right on the front of the owner operator portal because it just happened today.
Yes.
Awesome. Here's the driver, Jeff, asking, what's the point of committing on a load when the planners just turn around and take it from you? So we have a process behind committed loads, right? So would one of the three of you talk through what that looks like or the call that they should be getting?
Yep. So I think that the expectation.
Yeah, if you're on a
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, please.
well,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Mark.
and if you're on a committed load and we're going to pull that load off of you, you should be getting a call from a planner saying, hey, this is going to happen. This is why it's going to happen. And we'll work at finding you a different load. If you're not getting those calls, hey, let us know. We need to fix it. But the general rule is if it's a committed load, we got a call and you should know what's going on with it. And really, the reason why we would pull a load off, a committed load, is, hey, maybe the truck is running late, or maybe something's changed on the load, or that type of thing. So either way, we owe you an explanation, and we should be reaching out. If we're not doing it, please let us know.
All right. We'll jump back to Brett here. How can the owner operators get access to the nationwide map showing underbooked, overbooked areas?
Yeah, so that's the next feature we're going to put on the load board. So there'll be a map feature. It's not going to, you might be asking more of a deeper question around the SWIFT network as a whole, but what the map feature is going to allow you to do is look across the country to see where are those larger bubbles of freight. As Jesse mentioned, Dallas might be a market you want to go into because there's freight coming out of there. And then from that point, you can say, okay, if I take a load from Dallas to Georgia, how many loads are on average are coming out of Georgia, and make a better decision for your business. So that feature is probably about 45 days away. And just be on the lookout. We'll let you know when that's available.
All right. I'm going to fire a couple more at you. If I'm running regional OTR, can I use the load board?
I guess that depends. So if you're in the 005 division in your rate matrix, which is on your Schedule D, that you should show as an OTR LL or OTR EL. Sorry, that's confusing. I know there's acronyms to that, but that will mean you have access. You can also log into the owner operator portal. As I mentioned, hit the link, log in with your driver code and your passcode, and it'll tell you if you qualify. If there's a red box, that'll tell you that you're one of those variables isn't met.
Perfect. Is there a reason why 747 can't access load board?
Yeah, so for right now, we had to launch the load board in just step one, right? So step one was how do we get it to the majority of the owner operators that are running our over the road division? And then step two, step three, all the iterations after this is coming. 747 is one that we've had discussions around and we haven't finalized on just yet. But when you're a 747 team, you're in an expedited division, meaning that there are just-in-time committed loads that get put into that division. And there's a healthy balance there where we got to, so it's a longer answer, but ultimately we are looking into that in the future. For right now, it hasn't been added. The next step is we're adding our training consultants that are in the over the road division. They're going to get added next. And then we're going to go down the line.
All right. Here's a great question here. Is there anything the drivers can do to facilitate getting better freight opportunities and to make sure we are kept running?
Yes. Yeah, we touched on service. I think, if every driver focuses on servicing the load that they're under, trip planning, making sure they're getting out ahead of any of the problems that they possibly can. Service is the number one reason for a customer to remove freight from Swift. And so if we're servicing the freight that we have, everyone's doing their part, we're going to get more of it. And then more opportunities are going to come our way. So naturally there's scores by driver. There's, carriers or shippers score us as well. So it's the number one thing.
I'm going to rephrase some of the questions. So if you sent them in, I think it's more of a how, but how can planners and drivers communicate to be on the same page to avoid planning errors?
Well, we feel like they are. So if you're not seeing that, please reach out to your driver leader, your terminal leader, or one of us. So we can definitely we can work on those things.
Perfect.
We work very, I know in some of my terminals, it's been beautiful to see how closely the operations, the planning teams, and the fleet teams have really started to work together better than we've ever seen it. So really spend some time next time you're in a terminal, go in and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do they do if planners don't have enough information or notes they send on a certain assignment? What would you suggest they do? If they feel like, hey, I got a load, it really sounds like the customer is, I got a load and it didn't really let me know if it was drop and hook, or it didn't give me all the details that I felt like they could have to make me successful, and I have some more information I want to share. Who should they go back to with that information?
So I would say they'd want to communicate that to their driver leader, or they can reach out to a planner as well. Especially when we get new accounts, we rely on a lot of our owners and drivers to give us feedback. The best way to approach a customer, we might get feedback on, hey, don't go in this way, go in that way, or you have to have say two load straps, but this new customer has failed to tell us that, and unfortunately, sometimes we don't find out until one of our owners or company drivers get there and then inform us. So any feedback like that, we would appreciate for sure.
Yeah, you guys, the boots in the ground out there, you find out things and figure out things that the customer doesn't even know that could really help your fellow driver that could be in there next time.
Here's a question about, it's hard to get planners on the phone on nights and weekends. Trucking is a 24/7. What do you suggest? Or I think we touched on this really, Kevin, but maybe you can touch back on the call trees and why it's important that they go through it.
Again, like you just said, that's the call tree we really think is really going to help us. And then we've got a great ECT team. Ramon leads our ECT, and I mean, his team is answering the phone in 15 seconds or less, which is phenomenal. So they've made a lot of changes, and they've really worked hard to get there. I know I'm just like anybody else. I call in at night, and I can get somebody on the phone. Of course, we don't have the same staffing as we do at night. So do your very best to take care of your business during the daytime. We'd like to save the nighttime, even though, hey, we understand you guys are working 24/7. But most of our customers aren't, and there's not as much activity. So we don't have the same staffing as we do at night. Please do all you can take care of with your driver leader during normal business hours. and leave that exceptions for the nighttime on the unexpected events.
But I would also say, because of how we do scorecard our phones for nights and weekends, and we know for a fact the calls that come in are answered less than 15 seconds, maybe that person is calling the wrong number.
True.
You know, so check the number you're calling. I think the number that's been displayed at the bottom, that will route automatically to nights and weekends. If I'm right, I don't know, but yeah, that.
Yes.
So it's a one call
It
does it
will.
all. I mean, that's why we drive you to call that same number you call your driver leader on. When they're gone for the day, it routes to ECT automatically. Nothing else needs to get done. So you have your favorite for your driver leader and your favorite for the planning number. Either way, someone's going to answer the phone.
Here's a great question. We have somebody that's outside Swift, but they are pulling power only loads as an owner operator. And they've been doing quite a few of those, but how can I sign up for the Swift load board?
Yeah, it's a great question. So two separate lines of businesses and entities at Swift. So what we're referring to as a load board, or for those that lease their tractor to Swift Transportation, or they lease a tractor from Interstate Equipment Leasing and then lease that on to Swift Transportation. So if you're an independent contractor with your own authority and you're running through Swift Logistics on some of the power only, that is something you can do. You could also contract with Swift and then still trip lease or utilize that platform with Swift Logistics to run their loads as well. So I think to answer your question, would be to call a recruiting line. One of our owner operator lease advisors will be able to get more information to you, and that should be streaming at the bottom here for you.
We're going to hit a few more questions, and if we don't get to the answer on your questions, we will be responding to them afterwards. So lots of great comments, but here's one that came in. Would getting doubles or triples endorsement benefit company or owner for more load opportunities?
I can take that one. I think any endorsement helps you, but I think the biggest endorsement that you can get is a hazmat endorsement. We actually get asked quite a bit if we can haul hazmat freight, and the planners go in and look at the inbound trucks coming into a market, and we can see which of our owners and company drivers have hazmat endorsements. So I would say that would be the best one that you can get is hazmat. We don't do a lot of double and triple activity. We do a little bit, but not much.
I would agree in the West. I saw that question, that comment, and I was going to make sure we hit that before we got done here, because we do miss out on opportunities where to even accept freight with hazmat, because we don't have enough hazmat endorsed drivers. If I were a driver, I would have my hazmat. It gives you a leg up. It gives you an opportunity when freight's slow to haul freight when maybe you'd be sitting instead.
And do we still reimburse company drivers?
We do.
You do.
Yeah, we do. Macro 30, I see a question here where they're asking when that will work again. Macro 30, I believe, is the one, Jesse, that it gives you multiple loads. And is it probably just because of the freight market that we're not using that right now?
Yes, I see that coming back when things tighten up. I believe that'll come back. We're constantly reviewing, things like that. How like the 18-hour window that we're currently using that Brett had talked about earlier. And just on that, like in Kevin's area in Southern California, especially, they book a ton of same-day load offerings, and so we're not looking too far out, 24 or even in greater, because we want to make sure that we've painted the best picture that we can before we start sending out loads.
Perfect.
But I would say the macro 30 is still a viable option for them. It's just that if they're hitting it and they're in a market that doesn't have load offerings, that's going to come back as nothing. So generally, it's going to show you the three loads that work for your hours of service, and then that refreshes every 30 minutes. But you could be in Albuquerque and there's 0 loads and you're refreshing 0 loads. So I think it just depends on the market.
Do you allow owner operators out of Pennsylvania?
Oh, that's a good question. There are 10 states that we do not contract from, and I want to say Pennsylvania is one of them, but I need to get back to you on that. So
Frank, we'll make sure we answer that. Yep, there it is. Pennsylvania is not one of them. So the answer would be no, Frank. What do we do about low mile weekend loads? Example, 400-mile load that picks up Friday, delivers Monday. Any suggestions? Now, I think most of those loads you try to put on a driver that maybe is low hours or other things like that, right? Depending on the market, or we're getting you to a better market. But what's your guys' suggestion or reasoning?
And we generally push back on customer accounts when we see loads booked that way. We try to wiggle off them or get them rescheduled so they don't include a weekend. We definitely don't like hauling. We don't want to take loads in that scenario. Sometimes there's not anything we can do about it, but generally we push back and say, the poor velocity is not going to work for us. We don't want to put that on an owner or a company driver.
Yeah, and hey, at times, guys, that it is what it is. There's, taking that 400-mile load, maybe building up your hours, taking time to do laundry over the weekend or such. It's better than sitting. And at times, towards the latter part of the week, we're not going to have as much selection of freight. And so sometimes those are going to land in there, and we just got to kind of work with it. We do our best to try to see if we can, take it to a yard and set it down and use a Sunday driver on it, and get as creative as possible as we can on it. But Jesse's right. You try to avoid it all you can.
And eventually, will this expand to flatbed, refrigerated, the load board?
Yeah. We're looking at refrigerated over the road next, and then kind of go down the list. So absolutely. I think I mentioned it before. Flatbed is not on the horizon for this year, but that's something that we can look at next year potentially.
All right. Let me look. I think, what are the requirements to lease on at Swift?
That I would ask you to just reach out to one of our lease advisors on, just because there are a handful of them, and I don't want to take up all the time today or miss one of them, but we'd love to hear from you. And there's a lease advisor available for you today. We also have a text message option as well. If you didn't feel like calling in, you can text one of them, and that'll be streaming as well. But okay. I did want to touch on one more thing too, and it is just the common denominator of our top 25%, whether it be an owner operator or a company driver. The common denominator of those that earn the most at our company, and it's probably the same at most companies, is those that just say yes, right? They are open for business. They are ready to run. We've touched on this.
Flexibility.
They are very flexible. They love to run. They just want to get out there on the road. And that is not a dig at anyone else that has a niche that they want, or they just are maybe a little bit anxious of the unknown, and you've never been that way, you've never been to that shipper. But you got to think of it as say yes. If it was presented to you, do you want $200 for this weekend? Are you say yes? I would. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, it picks up tonight and it delivers on Monday morning. Well, that, do you take the money or not? And to me, I always talk to my drivers around your hours of service. You don't want to roll zeros as well. You want some of those hours coming back. And so it means a lot. And so I can't speak for your business or for how you like to operate, but that's the way I would run.
Well, that's why we talked about trying something new, right? You may have run 11 Western in the past, or you ran this California, Las Vegas loop, or any of those things. This is where expand your horizons, try some new places. Don't take what other people are saying for it. Hey, if you haven't ever been to Chicago, go to Chicago. If you haven't been to Atlanta, everybody has a different opinion on where the traffic's the worst or what's the problematic areas. Experience for yourself. Go try those out. By saying yes, you are going to make your maximum earning potential. I would tell you, there's thousands of drivers still hitting all the metrics, even level 2 miles in the driver performance program, which is $92.50 a month or more. And we see people hitting way more than that, 11, 12, 13,000. So I think you're hitting the nail right on the head, Brett, that we really just got to expand our horizons because of the situation we're in, right? You may do service for if you had a service business in northern Phoenix, but you may have to expand to more of Phoenix, right, to eastern and southern Phoenix in that time where maybe the business isn't as strong as it usually is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, what I can tell you at Swift is you will get a pre-plan or multiple pre-plans. And if you're not, it's probably check your PTA, go back to that. But when I hear a driver say I sat for a day or sat for 2 days, and I look back and it's, well, you've got 5 load options. You sat, but you sat, right? You got the loads available. It maybe not, again, I'm not trying to pick at you, but if anyone ever says that they sat, it's generally 99.9% of the time because they chose to.
Be flexible. All right. Well, I think we've hit a lot of the comments. I know, hey, we appreciate all the questions coming in. If we didn't get your question, we'll respond to you in the chat. appreciate your time. Hey, any closing remarks? Let's start with Mark. Any final thoughts on planning or drivers or us or anything?
Well, gosh, I'll go back to something we've said, I don't know how many times, but the PTA, that's a tool for a driver. That's you telling us when you're ready for a load. And just make sure you're updating it and make sure it's accurate, and we do the rest. So let us know when you're ready to go, and then the onus is on us to get you taken care of.
Definitely. Kevin?
I'll hit a couple things. First of all, we appreciate you guys. I mean, I couldn't do what you guys do, and you truly do. We've got the greatest drivers in the industry. There's no question. But just to cap onto that PTA, make sure everybody understands that means that is when you are ready to go. I think there's still some confusion out there of this is when you're going to arrive at the location, or this is when you're going to be empty. When are you going to be ready for your next load? That's your PTA. That's critical. And so, really to finish it off, guys, I would say the talk about being flexible and taking what's available, that couldn't be more true. And please understand, whether you're an owner, a mentor, a team, a solo, dedicated, whatever it is, we don't make money. We're not successful if you're not running. There is no value to us sitting you. I mean, we've got an investment. If you're a company driver, we have an investment in that truck. If you're an owner operator, we've got an investment in you and in the trailers and the equipments and the terminals. We want your truck moving just as much as you do. So please don't ever think that there's any ill intentions of sitting you. We want you to move. And if it's a 400-mile load that got sent to you, that's because unfortunately that's all we've been able to come up with at the time. And we want to work with that and make it better.
But 400 miles could lead to 2,000 miles, right?
It is what it is.
Yep. Jesse. Jesse's on mute, I think.
He's trying.
He's trying. Brett, why don't you go before Jesse? Okay.
Yeah,
Jesse.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just any closing remarks for us today?
Just really appreciate everybody. Like Kevin said, you guys do a phenomenal job, and please don't be afraid to reach out to the team, especially if you have a specific need or request. I know it can get frustrating sometimes for everybody when we send multiple plans and you're saying no, I can't do that, or I need to go here. Or if you have a very specific need, please make sure you reach out to us and let us know what it is, because we want to get you moving for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, awesome.
Brett?
I would just say keep the feedback coming. We really appreciate it. We truly believe it's a gift. We want to open it up and see what you're saying and see if we can make the improvements in some of the things that you're asking about. We don't see it as negative. We just see it as an opportunity to get better. So keep dropping your comments and questions and keep submitting your surveys. That's really how we get better.
Well, and I hope you see from this group of folks that I truly believe there's two positions in Swift. There's drivers and their driver support. We're all here to support you. We thank you for all your hard work. You're out there grinding every day, and we can't say thank you enough. Be safe out there.
Yeah.